Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. You know, different groups have different standards. You know, I mentioned you before in my videos that when it comes to the white dudes, they're the most strict within their politics. And part of the reason is that I don't know if they like just punishing each other or knocking each other off, or they're always into the politics, but you have no leeway when you're a white dude on a compound. You know, when you deviate from protocol, when you deviate from the rules, you're gonna get punished. The other group that are just as strict is the natives. You know, the natives are not allowing, you know, I mean, as far as like being a rat, sex offender, checking in and all that stuff, that's already understood. All that shit is a no-no. But there's other behaviors on the compound that are accepted by certain groups that are not. And one of the behaviors is gunning. Now, what gunning is a dude pulling out his weenie and jerking off on the staff. Like, with us, if you do that, you're getting punished. Because one, like the way we look at it is like, how are you allowing the system to break you down to the point where you have no self-control, that you can't control your compulsive behavior? And two, who the fuck wants to be in a cell with a dude sitting there jacking off on a CO? But the race that don't really have an issue with that. Now, there's gangs within the black community that don't accept that, don't tolerate that. But if we're talking about just a race in general, you know, the blacks, they're okay with that. You know, when I was in Lompoc, they had a crew, 2 crews. And, you know, it was like they were proud of it. You know, one of them, they call themselves G Unit. And the other one, they call themselves Interscope. And the ones that belonged to the Interscope was the dudes that was jacking off on the COs, peeping through their window or around the corner or whatever. So they call them dudes Interscope. Now the G Unit ones, they're the ones like right there in front of the CO's face, jerking off. And, you know, just to be fair, there's female staffs that are into that allow these dudes to do that to them and are okay with it. And they'll sit there and watch. And, you know, sitting there watching and not like hitting the deuces or riding them up, just encourage other dudes to do it. So it goes both ways. There's some CO staff that aren't with it, but there's been enough that are okay with it. You know, there's been incidents where we were in Lompoc and Victorville that there'd be 3 or 4 dudes would go to the education because the education lady was cool with watching them jerking off to her. And, you know, for me, it's beyond my understanding. I don't know how you can even do that or whatever. You know, I might be a little too self-conscious and embarrassed to even, you know, attempt to anything like that. But again, certain groups is not accepted at all. And on this particular incident that I'm gonna share with you, we was in Florence. And they had a black dude from the dirty South that was in a South car. They were living in EA. This is before I got moved over there. And he ended up jacking off on a girl, on a female staff, but he did it in the day room by the ice machine. So during the time that he was, getting off, doing his thing, there was this Texas EME dude named Polo that just came out of his, they got the microwave and the ice machine by each other. So Polo was on his way to go, cook his food in the microwave, and out of the corner of his eye, there's this dude jerking off. And, nobody wants to see another dude's weenie. I mean, I don't. Maybe there's some that don't mind it or whatever, but if I'm trying to do something, or if I'm in a conversation or whatever, and somebody pulls out his dick and starts whacking off, I'm gonna feel disrespected. And I'm gonna punish the dude. I don't give a fuck about the politics or anything, because he can do whatever the fuck he wants. If he's in his cell peeping through the window, jerking off on a female staff or on a male staff or whoever he wants to jerk off on, that's his business. But in the day room, that's public, that's public space. One, if he doesn't have any regards for me, then I'm not gonna have any regards for him. So when Polo walked by and he looked and he got burned, he got burned because he's like, dude got his weenie in his hand going to town on the CEO that's in the office. Polo pulled out his knife and started stabbing dude. He hit dude a couple times. Dude ran around the unit and he kept hitting the dude until the CEOs came and broke it up or whatever. But he hurt the dude really bad. Now, while the rest of us was concerned about the incidents, because in Florence, they have a habit of putting charges on you. When you stab somebody or if you punish somebody, severely, they're going to put a case on you. When I first went to Florence, the captain, he was a black dude, and during our orientation, he was proud. He said, "Hey, we have a really good rapport with the DEA over here in town. We're going to charge you. You get caught with a knife, you stab somebody, and so on and so forth, because we're going to case you." And I shared it with you when I went to the shoe after I got jumped in Florence, that there was a couple of dudes that were going to court. There was 2 Land King dudes that were going to court because they went up into a block and stabbed one of the dudes up, and they ended up getting pleading out to 36 months each. One of them played out to the assault, and the other one played out to the knife. 36 months is another 3 years of your life. And they also had a black dude that was in there that got a year. He didn't stab nobody, he just got caught with the knife. But the reason that he got charged with it, because when the CEOs asked to pat him down, he ran. And the CEOs went over there and fucking chased him down and wrestled him. And during the scuffle, during trying to subdue him, a couple of them CEOs claimed they got injured, bruises or whatever. And they ended up charging him with a knife and gave him a year for it. Well, at this time when Polo did this, he only had like 3 or 4 months, maybe even less, to go home. So all of us on the yard was a little concerned about what was going to happen to him, because we already know that Florence was casing you over there. But, when he went to the shoe, the CEOs didn't case him. A lot of CEOs appreciated that he did that, because, these female staff, they're somebody's mother, they're somebody's sister. You hear me sit on here, and some of the staff that I talk about, I have absolutely no love for them because they're a piece of shit. They come on there, they abuse their power, or they're racist, or they're just a fucking asshole. And to those staff members, I don't give a fuck about them. I don't care what happens to them. But at the same time, you're keeping it real and being fair to everybody involved. A lot of these staff, a lot of these CEOs that work in the facility, they're just there for a job, for a paycheck, take care of their family. And then when they come to work, they conduct themselves respectfully. there's been a few staff that I've had issue with to the point where, I beat them up, knocked them out. But there's so many more staffs that work in the facilities that I've never had any issue with, that has always been respectful to me, and I've been respectful in return. And I've never had a staff bring me anything. I don't even know how to engage in that conversation to even be able to compromise a staff. I've never been friends with a staff or had any good rapport with, a personal relationship rapport with a staff. But there's been plenty of staff that's worked there that we've had a mutual respect for, because they've never went out of their way to give me a hard time. And in return, I've never done anything to disrespect them. Because you hear me speak about man time. Man time is not just for us inmates. Man time is for everybody, whether you're a female, a man, whether you're an inmate, a cop, or a civilian. It's just a way of conducting yourself with integrity. And like I said, I've spoken a lot about, staff members that I don't have any respect for, that I don't like, a bit. But there's always, there's plenty of them that's worked in the facilities that is respectful and has given nobody no problem, and all they're doing is your job. Because, you can't get mad at a CO if you leave your freaking knife out and he finds it and locks you up for it. Or if you leave your dope out, or if you get caught shooting dope, whatever, because they still have a job to do. It's a cat and mouse game. Your responsibility is to make sure you don't get caught slipping, because at any given time, these COs is going to come and shake down your cells. Now, there's COs that relish in trying to bust somebody. They come in there with their own little magnet where they hit the walls with the magnet to see if you got a knife hidden in your freaking wall. There's dudes that go the extra mile to try to knock you off. But there's also other staff that come in, and every time they come into a block, they have they have to search 4 or 5 cells. And there's been plenty of COs that has worked in the block that I lived in that will come and say, hey, I got to search 4 cells, and they give you the cell numbers they're going to search. For example, hey, I'm going to search 201, 215, 216, and so on. And they'll just tell somebody. They don't tell the person that live in those particular cell, but they'll tell somebody, say, hey, I got to do a shakedown. Here's the cells I'm shaking down. And whoever the CO tells it to, they'll go and say, hey, Mesa, they're about to shake down your cell. Hey, so-and-so, the dude's got to do 4 shakedown, and your cell came up. And now it's your responsibility to go in that cell and clean it up and move whatever contraband that you got in that cell. And if you disregard the heads up and get caught with whatever is in that cell, that's your fault. So, but pertaining to female staff, there's somebody's mother, there's somebody's sister, there's somebody's daughter. And just because you're a female staff working in a male penitentiary doesn't mean that you should be degraded and disrespected in such a fashion. Again, there's plenty of female staff that are okay with it, that even enjoy it, because, I don't know, I can't speak for them, but if you're sitting there letting a dude jack off on you and you're okay with it, you must enjoy it, right? But at the same time, there's female staff that are not okay with it. And I don't know if this staff at this particular time was okay or not okay with it. The incident I'm speaking of was on the dude from the South that was being disrespectful. He's out in the day room by the freaking ice machine and just pulled out his weenie and started jerking off. And Polo came by, seen it, and punished him. So after the incident, Polo went back to the shoe, but now there's a brewing tension on the compound because, we always have these policy, if you have an issue with one of my homeboys, you bring it to me, and give me the opportunity to deal with it. So if I have an issue with a black dude from a gang, a white dude from this gang, or even if they're not from a gang, the protocol is for me to go to their people and let them know what my issue is. Those protocols are in place to keep the yard from blowing up. Because if the black dudes in the block sees me, or a Mexican dude, whatever race, it doesn't matter, sees me over there punishing one of their homeboy, not understanding the situation, not knowing the situation, they're obligated to rise up and come to his aid. And then if the other white dudes see me get into it with them, and then the other Asians seeing the white dudes coming at me, a chain reaction can spread like wildfire, and the whole yard, the whole unit can blow up. So after the incident, because he was in another block, he was in EA, I lived in DA. And during my time over there in USP Florence, I was real cool with the Texas EME. But again, I'm not cool with every single one of them. I have a few of them that I consider close friends of mine that I still try to look out for now. But every incident, I can't insert myself in everything that goes on in the compound. One, it's unhealthy for me, and two, it's unnecessary. So when the homies from the Texas EME came and brought the situation to me, they weren't telling me about it to see if I'm going to assist in it, and aid and assist. They were just informing me about, hey, this is what's going on in the compound right now, this and that. Because they have plenty of members within the organization to deal with the situation. I don't involve myself unless it's like a personal friend of mine. But if it's if it's a gang issue or whatever, they deal with it on their own. But if I'm walking with someone and somebody that has an issue with them brings them a move while I'm walking the yard with them, then I'm going to take it as you're disrespecting me because I'm over here walking with this dude. I ain't got nothing to do with your issue. You don't have enough courtesy to wait until you catch this dude on his own or whatever. And plus, when you're coming at me like that, coming at a dude that I'm walking with, you're jeopardizing my life. So I'm not going to stop and be like, hey, I ain't got nothing involved. I'm going to have to defend myself and deal with the situation. So when we go out in the yard, I'm not going out in the yard to aid and assist or anything or to be involved in the conversation. I'm just going out in the yard because it's my rec. And I'm going out there to work out or play handball and do whatever I do. When I go out in the yard, I see all the South dudes, the coalition, which is like Florida, Texas, I think maybe Georgia is part of it. They have a coalition, Louisiana, they have a South coalition. But to be fair, a lot of the Louisiana dudes but they don't ride with the South car, because a lot of the Louisiana dudes that I've known, they're on man time, and they know that a lot of these dudes that come together in a coalition like the South car, they let a lot of foul dudes on their compound. They have really low standards. So as far as like the New Orleans dudes out of Louisiana, mainly the people that I know from Louisiana or New Orleans, them dudes, they make it known like, yeah, we from the South, but we're not part of the South car, because they run their car with a higher standard as opposed to these dudes with this coalition. So out there on this particular time were dudes from Memphis, Texas, and Florida. They're out in the compound powwowing because some of them had issues that another race had stabbed one of their dudes. But again, the incidents already happened. Their gripe should have been about with the other South dudes that was in the block, seeing this Mexican dude stab this black dude that didn't jump up and help him. But at the same time, like I said, when you have a coalition with people that are not like-minded, that don't have the same standards, it's hard for these dudes that are good dudes to jump out there for a dude that was being disrespectful, that was out there pulling his weenie and jerking off on a CO in the day room. So at the end of the day, they had some gripe about the situation, but they really didn't want to go to war over it because really, you know, put yourself in their shoes. If you were a good dude, that you have standards, do you really want to risk your life over this freak that doesn't have any self-control, that doesn't even have the decency to respect the rest of the people in the block to do that shit in his cell, instead out here in the day room with his weenie out? Like, we're all men in this fucking place. We're not trying to see other dudes fucking jumped, you know? So at the end of the day, even though some of them didn't like the way it went down, they didn't really push the issue. But as far as Polo, when he went back to the shoe, you know, CEOs looked out for him. You know, they gave him extra trays at mealtime and stuff, because from their perspective, that shit is not cool. You know, because they're friends with this female. They know that she's a mother. They know that she's somebody's daughter. And to subject the female staff to these different things is not cool. Like I said, I don't really care about, you know, I don't have no love for CEOs because they work with the federal government holding the keys, keeping me locked up. But I don't have any personal issues with these different staff members. And, you know, part of my program here, sharing you guys these stories, I'm always going to keep it real with you in my perspective. And jerking off on a female is not cool. And for all the different communities within the prisons, the race that are okay with it, like I said, again, it's not individual gangs, it's not individual people. I'm not painting a broad brush that they're all with the program, but as far as the different races go, the black community in the penitentiary don't really carry themselves the way they're supposed to. Welcome to the USP.